Welcome, my Leo friends, both those returning like faithful stars and those arriving for the first time, curious and wide-eyed. This is Golden Fortune Leo, a space where astrology, psychology, and a dash of timeless wisdom come together to remind you that your story is always bigger than the moment you're in. As we stand in the twilight of August, picture yourself at the edge of a season, one foot still tangled in the lessons of yesterday, the other testing the ground of tomorrow. It's not simply a date on the calendar, it's the kind of threshold where life pauses, looks you in the eye, and asks, "Are you ready?" And if you're here, I'd say you are. Maybe that's because you are among the chosen ones, the souls who sense the universe leaning in close, whispering secrets meant only for those bold enough to listen. The year of triumph 2025 isn't a distant prophecy, it's already tuning up, the overture to a play where you, Leo, are center stage. Think of it this way, when most signs light a candle, you ignite a bonfire. When others politely enter a room, you arrive like a parade. And while the world might call that dramatic, I call it destiny. For when a Leo rises, the stage doesn't just brighten, it transforms. One of the greatest lessons unfolding for Leo at this time is almost disarmingly simple: surrender to the magic of being unapologetically yourself. We live in an age where masks are traded like currency. People edit their lives for Instagram, crop out the messy living room, filter away the wrinkles, and post captions about how everything's fine while quietly falling apart. But you, Leo, were never designed to play that game. You were not born to be wallpaper, you were born to be the chandelier. Astrologically, you are ruled by the sun, the cosmic spotlight that makes life possible. And like the sun, you cannot help but shine, even when storms pass overhead. Yet through years of research and countless conversations, I've noticed how many Leos secretly wonder, what if I'm too much? What if my light blinds instead of warms? Let me answer that plainly: when you dim your brilliance, you don't make anyone more comfortable, you simply deprive yourself. Worse, you rob the world of the very beacon it needs. Psychology tells us authenticity is the cornerstone of well-being. Buddhism reminds us that pretending to be what we're not is the root of suffering. And here's the cosmic joke: while you worry about being too much, half the room is praying for someone bold enough to lead the way. So, your assignment in this chapter of life is clear: be the Leo who lets the mane fly wild in the wind. Walk into a room not with arrogance, but with the quiet, magnetic confidence of someone who knows their worth. After all, the sun doesn't ask permission to rise, it just shows up, and the whole world rearranges itself around its light. Here's where the cosmic irony shows up, and it's almost comical. The very sign ruled by the blazing sun, the force that never stops shining, is now being asked to do something deeply unnatural: rest. I can already hear the roar of protest from my Leo friends. Rest? Me? I've got a kingdom to manage, people to impress, dreams to chase. And yet, the truth remains: a sun that never sets doesn't nurture, it scorches. In the language of psychology, constant striving without pause floods the body with stress hormones, leaving us jittery, reactive, and eventually worn down. Rest isn't weakness, it is strategy. It's the pause between the notes that makes music, the silence that gives a speech its power. In tarot, the Ten of Swords often signals this exact moment. Something old falls away not because you've failed, but because your energy is being recalibrated. Think of it as the breath the phoenix takes before erupting into flame. The stillness isn't a punishment, it's the gathering of power. In fact, research in neuroscience shows that during rest, the brain enters default mode, processing experiences and creating insights that elude us when we were busy. Buddhists call this Wu Wei, or effortless action, achieving more by allowing space for being rather than endless doing. I'll admit, I've learned this lesson the hard way. Once, before launching a big project, I lost my voice entirely, my body's way of saying, "Sit down." Another time, I got so sick I could hardly move, only to realize afterward that the forced stillness cleared space for a profound new chapter. What looked like bad luck was spirit rearranging the stage. So if you, Leo, have felt bone-deep exhaustion, don't mislabel it as laziness. It is preparation. Your soul is sweeping the floor, setting the table, and dimming the lights for a grand performance that is about to begin. Sometimes the most powerful thing a Leo can do is not to roar louder, but to rest long enough so the roar carries farther. Let's talk about cycles, because if there's one thing Leos know how to do, it's replaying the same story with a little extra dramatic flair. Every Leo I've ever met, and I've studied quite a few, carries what I like to call a backpack of memories. Inside are the sharp words that once cut too deep, the betrayals that still sting, and the times someone dared to underestimate you. You wear it like invisible armor, and at first it feels protective. But here's the catch, armor is heavy, and it slows you down. I'll give you a mundane but telling analogy. Years ago, I had a bag so overloaded with nonsense, wrinkled receipts, dried out pens, and a granola bar that was probably old enough to vote that it weighed more than my laptop. I told myself I needed it all, just in case. But in reality, I was hauling junk. That's exactly what we do with grudges and regrets. We imagine they keep us safe, but really, they just drag on our spirit, like carrying rocks when all we needed was water. This season, life is saying, empty the backpack. Drop the he said, she said. Let go of the courtroom reruns in your head where you replay your speeches of righteous victory. True strength doesn't come from rehearsing old battles, it comes from releasing them. Even Buddhist teachings remind us that clinging is the root of suffering. Holding on to what should be gone only guarantees more pain. And here's the hopeful turn, every cycle that ends is living proof that you are evolving, not stuck. You've survived 100% of your worst days so far, and now, as the year of triumph 2025 approaches, the invitation is clear. Don't drag yesterday's pain into tomorrow's possibilities. The stage is being reset. And trust me, Leo, it's much easier to dance into the spotlight when you're not carrying a backpack full of ghosts. The phoenix has always been an image Leos cling to with a certain fiery pride, and it makes perfect sense. You are ruled by fire, after all, and endings for you are never just endings. When a chapter in your life collapses, whether it's a career that no longer fits, a relationship that's run its course, or even an old version of yourself, it isn't a funeral. It's the climax before the curtain rises on Act 2. The phoenix doesn't just survive, it burns to ash and then dares to return brighter, stronger, and infinitely more dramatic. And let's be honest, if any sign were going to turn a breakdown into a grand spectacle of rebirth, it would be Leo. But the phoenix isn't the only ally walking beside you. Enter the butterfly, floating in with gentler wisdom. Where the phoenix shouts rebirth with fire and smoke, the butterfly whispers transformation with grace and patience. No trumpet fanfare, no roaring flames, just a quiet emergence from the cocoon, wings spread in effortless beauty. And here lies an important lesson, not all change has to feel like a Shakespearean tragedy followed by a Broadway comeback. Sometimes transformation is as small as rearranging your desk, swapping late-night junk food for fruit, or perhaps the hardest of all, choosing kindness over ego in a heated conversation. Leos often assume growth has to be epic, but the butterfly reminds you that the subtler metamorphoses pave the way for the grand ones. And here's where the humor comes in, like butterflies, you attract attention without lifting a finger. If a Leo strolls down the grocery aisle, the cereal boxes practically salute. It's the kind of magnetism you can't buy, bottle, or fake. You were born with it, and both the phoenix and the butterfly remind you whether you rise in flames or float on delicate wings, your transformation will never go unnoticed. Ah yes, love. The topic Leos lean into with equal parts excitement and suspicion. The Two of Cups has appeared, and for Leo, this is more than a hallmark moment. It's a sign that connection, true, soulful connection, is in the air. But let's set the record straight. This isn't just about candlelit dinners or roses on the doorstep. The Two of Cups speaks to any bond that vibrates at your frequency, whether it's a soulmate, a friend who feels like kin, or even that rare work partnership that makes Monday mornings feel less like punishment. Of course, every Leo carries a scar or two in this department. You love big, you give big, and yes, you've been burned big. Betrayal hits harder when your heart is all in, and no sign puts their whole being into love quite like you. But here's the good news, that old version of you, the one who settled for crumbs while offering banquets, is gone. You've shed that skin. The new Leo is aligned with connections that mirror your worth, not diminish it. And let's talk synchronicity, because the universe has a flair for the theatrical. You think of someone, and suddenly they text. You bump into a stranger who says exactly the thing you needed to hear. Carl Jung called these meaningful coincidences, glimpses of the collective unconscious reminding us that we were woven into something larger. For Leos, who already live life like the world is a stage, synchronicity is the universe's way of sending applause from the wings. So, what's the lesson here? Keep your heart open. Don't dismiss the small connections that knock at your door, sometimes they are the ones that shift everything. The world is full of people waiting to meet you at your level of growth, and when a Leo meets the right match, it's never subtle. It's fireworks at midnight, even if it happens over coffee at 10 a.m. Let's talk about something every Leo has been accused of at least once, being dramatic. Now, if you're a Leo, you've probably rolled your eyes at that word more times than you can count. But let me tell you a secret: being dramatic is just passion dressed in its finest clothes. And honestly, what's the alternative? A dull, gray existence where everyone whispers their feelings and apologizes for taking up space? Please. The world would collapse from boredom without Leo's flair for the grand. You were born to make an entrance, and sometimes an exit, worthy of a standing ovation. Think about it, if life were a movie, Leos would never settle for being the blurry figure in the background. You want the lead role, the one whose name rolls first in the credits. And why not? Every story needs someone bold enough to carry the spotlight. But here's the twist: true Leo greatness doesn't come from hogging the stage. It comes from shining so brightly that others realize they can shine too. Radiance, not dominance, is your superpower. The philosopher in me would say that's your dharma, to remind others that life is richer when lived fully, not timidly. The psychologist in me would add that authentic expression reduces anxiety and builds resilience. And the novelist in me can't help but say it makes for a better story. So how do you actually navigate this season without burning yourself out? Here's where practicality joins the show. First, rest without guilt. Even the sun sets every evening, and no one calls it lazy. Second, declutter your home, your mind, your grudges. Nothing feels lighter than a clean slate. Third, watch for signs. A fox darting across your path, the number 444 glowing on a clock. These are not accidents but cosmic post-it notes. Fourth, strengthen your relationships. Seek the people who make you feel energized, not drained. And finally, balance your fire with your shadows. Don't fear the darker parts of yourself, they are the contrast that makes your light undeniable. At the end of the day, Leo, your humor and humanity are what set you apart. Yes, you crave the spotlight, but your true magic lies in showing the rest of us how to live with heart, courage, and maybe a little theatrical flourish along the way. When we bring spirituality, psychology, and a little common sense together, the lesson for Leo becomes clear: you are learning how to hold life without squeezing it too tightly. From a Buddhist perspective, suffering is often born from clinging, whether it's clinging to an old relationship, a reputation, or even an outdated self-image. Leos do not cling because they are weak. On the contrary, they hold on because they love with such fire, such devotion, that letting go feels like betrayal. But here's the paradox, the same love that makes you want to protect everything can also weigh you down. The wisdom of this season is to love without chains, to shine without waiting for applause, and to rest without apology. From a psychological lens, what you're going through is called an identity shift. Every time you shed an old role, employee, partner, the responsible one, or even the version of yourself that people once expected, you step into a new identity. And yes, it's uncomfortable. The old self resists, it wants to linger, like an actor who refuses to leave the stage after their lines are finished. But here's the truth, the only way to become the king or queen of the jungle is to stop clinging to the cub. Growth requires molding, and Leos, dramatic as you may be, know how to make even the awkward middle stages look like a performance worth watching. So, dear Leo, let me close with this, you are on the edge of triumph. The exhaustion you feel, the doubts, the restless nights, these are not signs of failure. They are the birth pains of transformation. You are stepping into the year of triumph 2025, a chapter where rest, renewal, and authentic radiance open doors you once thought were closed. You are the phoenix, rising from the ash with sparks still clinging to your feathers. You are the butterfly, quietly unfolding wings that were forming in secret. You are the sun, steady, unstoppable, illuminating the path not only for yourself but for those who walk beside you. And yes, you are the chosen one, carrying a flame the world desperately needs. So take a deep breath. Smile at your reflection. Know that this is not the conclusion of your story, it is the grand beginning of the next act. Celebrate it. Live it boldly. And remember, life is not just about triumphs on paper but about savoring the warmth of each day, laughing when you can, resting when you must, and shining because you were born to. If this message resonates with you, show your light in return, like, share, and subscribe to Golden Fortune Leo. This space is your stage, and together we'll continue to explore the wisdom, humor, and fire that make being Leo an unforgettable journey.